I got an error, Emily. Or I think we're live. Hello, welcome. Sorry. Happy Monday. This is how the Monday's been going with technology today. Good to see everybody. Renee, thank you for joining me today. We are here to talk about in our HR Huddle. We've been looking at, we're in the fourth quarter, which is incredible in 2021. And we thought we should talk about what are we going to do to get that last mile in of this marathon that we've been running. And, how do we re-energize ourselves? How do we re-energize our team? Breathe new life into, that last leg that we have here of 2021. And what does that look like? And as we were reflecting on it, one of the ways that we do that is we talk a lot at Convergence Coaching about being grateful and practicing generosity. And so much so that we just added it to our core values and our value statement. And so we thought we would start there, and then we'll talk about some ways that we can practice generosity and gratitude and how that will make a difference, both for ourselves, but also for our teams. And we thought as HR leaders or as managers that might be listening, that you might get some ideas of, what can we do, to step back and, we look at, the last quarter of this year, what should we be doing? So Renee, I know you had some thoughts about, our values and some of that work that we just did. Do you want to jump in and maybe share about that?
Yeah, I would love to, Tamera. Thank you. And we just recently added it to our values. And we also, within the last 2 years, added it to our leadership attributes that we use to assess leaders. And so in my mind, it signals this commitment as a team and also as in our teaching that we want to talk more about generosity. We want people to be thinking about generosity and how can they be more generous with their colleagues, with the people that are coming up behind them, with the leaders who are ahead of them, by the way, because I was just thinking as you were talking, Tamera, about our senior program. So that's a program for folks that are in between staff and manager. It's 4 roundtables of some leadership training. And we talked to them in the very first session about being a generous leader. And so they have to think about how being generous to the staff, being generous to my managers and my partners, because they frustrate me and they, and I have irritations with them, but how can I help them? How can I make their lives better? How can I, not get upset and instead just go and talk to people about it and kind of have that generosity of spirit that I'm not just going to operate from, I'm frustrated, I'm irritated, people aren't doing what I want them to do. So anyway, I think it's just all about, it's this commitment. It's making this commitment as a team and then talking about it on a regular basis. And that's what we do with our values. And that's what we do with that, having that as a part of our leadership attributes and talking about it in our coaching, is continuing to have that commitment around being more generous, more compassionate, more grateful leaders. And it's not necessarily always in our nature. I think that's the thing, is that life intrudes and frustration intrudes. And so having that as a value kind of pulls you back.
Yeah. I think that's so important when you think about it's a mindset, right? I think that's what you're pointing to. And that if I stop and pause, and no matter what the situation is, say, what am I grateful for right now? And let's just talk about volume. We're all, we all are blessed. We say blessed. That's one of the words we choose to use, with the volume of client work and opportunity and, choices and initiatives we could take on. And we could be overwhelmed. We could focus on the lack of capacity. We could focus on the lack of hours. There's all of these things that might be impacting us, and not in a positive way. But if I just paused for a moment and said, I am so grateful to have these choices. I am so blessed to have the opportunities to work with these clients. I am grateful that I have such a great team that I can rely on, and we're linking arms and, choosing what we're going to do and prioritize and getting the work done together and making a difference. And that just settles me down when I stop to think about, what am I grateful for? I know we've been practicing that during the, pandemic, grateful for our health, grateful for technology, that we're able to continue our work and relationships and rapport with our people. And so just practicing that gratitude I think is important and can reset us. And I think that's something, for us individually to practice, but I think that's something else, as a team, to say, what are we grateful for? And, as we look at the year end, what are we grateful for, that we've accomplished in 2021? What are we grateful for the opportunities coming up as we look between now and the end of the year? What are we grateful for each other? We do try to practice gratitude and expressing gratitude with our team members and with our clients, and saying thank you for being with me and rolling up your sleeves here and figuring this puzzle out with me. So we try to be specific about that. But it does take pausing. For some of us, we can naturally go there, but I think for most of us, I know, I've been practicing it, so it's a little bit more natural, but I'm like, I have to pause and say, okay, what can I be grateful for in this situation?
Well, and we lift each other up. So that's the value of team, and being on the same page as a team about wanting to be more grateful and be more generous and show more compassion, is that when you are having a hard time with it, I can help you. And when I'm having a hard time with it, you can help me. And so, because it is tough, it really is. And we are so busy. So you were talking about how we are grateful also with our clients, Tamera, and we make it a point in the beginning of every email and at the end of every email to show gratitude. And that's not just with clients, but also with prospects. So really in every interaction, looking for how can we show some gratitude. And so that's a discipline, that we have as a team. And then it helps us, it kind of, I don't know, it starts to rub off, doesn't it? And then I'm doing it, you're doing it, our clients are doing it. We're all grateful for one another. So it is helpful to have the team to support you in that. And so if you have it as a value, then you're going to talk about it more. You can talk about this in your manager meetings or your partner meetings. You can say, I think we need to be more generous and more grateful with our people. And I'd like to just take 5 minutes out of every meeting to talk about that as a group. Like, what else could we do? And it's fascinating in that senior program, Tamera, when you ask those leaders, what are some of the things that you can do to be more generous? They don't talk about what others could do to be generous. They start making lists, and they're doing it out loud, and they're also chatting it to us. And they have so many ideas for how they can share knowledge with each other, how they can help someone else who's having a hard time or who needs to build a skill. They just it's almost easy for them to just start firing it off. Once you get it going, it's like lighting a spark or lighting a fire. It just takes a spark.
I think that's so great. And I would do that on the gratitude side, just to touch back on that for a moment. The whole idea of a list. One of the things that we've been working with firm leaders and HR professionals on is make a list about what you're grateful for about being in public accounting. Why is now a good time to be in public accounting? What are you grateful for? I'm grateful for the different kinds of services that I can provide. I'm grateful for the flexibility and really, setting a course, for where I want to go in my career, the kinds of clients I want to work with. I'm grateful for all of the technology and all the fun learning around that, with all the AI and bots and all those things coming down. You could make a list of all the, possibilities or all the things that are so cool right now to be in public accounting. And we forget because we're focused on 10/15, which is right around the corner, or our November audit deadlines, or like the list, my next consulting project. The list goes on. And so we're, in the weeds, very much in the trees. But if we lift our head up and say, gosh, why is this profession so great? And right now, why is it so great? And what am I grateful for that I get to be in this profession right now? And so that list that you were talking about, Renee, I just think is super, a super fun way. And it is catchy. Once you start generating that list, it's like, and I like this, and I appreciate this. And it's like, oh yeah. And that breathes new life into us as well. And so I think that's important to do. And on the generosity, there's both, I think, we think about generous, like we think about programmatic things we could do or things that the firms can do. And we've got some ideas. I know, Renee, you've got some of those too. But I think when we were talking, one of the things that we also distinguished is, what could I do individually around generosity? And you started pointing to some that those seniors were generating. I can share my knowledge. I can share my time. I can share my listening. I can actually take the time, not be multitasking, and have people feel heard. I could, take their ideas and practice one of them. I could apply one. Let's try it. I could empower people. That's a way I could be generous, not be stuck that it has to be my way. It's like, okay, Renee, you want to try that? Let's do that. Let's see how it goes. And we don't think about that necessarily as generosity, I don't think. But if I'm going to be generous, then I'm going to be generous and say, well, what do you think? What should we do? How can I empower you? How can I, provide more to you? And it could be that more of time or more knowledge or more experiences or bringing you along. All of those kinds of things is out of generosity. And I think one of the biggest ones that I've been talking to firm leaders about, especially, is hopeful intentions. Listening from hopeful intentions. We're all on the same team. And if we don't feel like we're on the same team, that's where I might back up and say, let's make a list of what we're committed to here, either with this client engagement or this initiative, or maybe a new process we're implementing. Let's back up and say, what are we trying to accomplish? Why are we doing this? Because there's usually more unity in it than we might be experiencing. And then we can get to the how do we get there? And then that's where I can practice generosity. But listening from hopeful intentions, or reading emails from hopeful intentions, not from, oh my gosh, she's grouchy today. It's like, oh my gosh, it's October 4th. And, we've got a lot of pressure and deadlines. And, she's just trying to get this out and get this client taken care of. And I'm listening from that. I'm reading emails from that hopeful intentions. So those are some ways that we can practice individually, some generous attributes, if you will.
Which then builds trust in the team, Tamera, because,
yes.
And we have to remind ourselves that we come back to that, because we do stray from it sometimes and pull ourselves back. I love that. Well, I think we should talk about some of the things also that you can be doing to recharge and re-energize your people, because it is a stressful time right now. It's not just in our firms, but also just in general in the world. I was talking to some folks today about it, and they were talking about how it was showing up inside of our accounting firms. And I said, I don't think it's just here that people are upset, that COVID's not over, that we're still dealing with COVID. And so we have that, plus we have all the deadlines, plus we have the stress, we have year end coming here. And so we think we want you to breathe new life into your people. And so we did want to talk a little bit, Tamera, about these mindset ideas, but also some specific things that we think you could be doing with your people. And so I'm going to throw out a couple here, Tamera, and then I want you to throw some out too, like some impactful activities that firms could be doing. And one is stay interviews. We would love to see you with your people after 10:15. For the tax people, you're going to have to wait until after 10:15. But to pull them together and, almost structured like an exit interview, where you think about what kind of questions would you ask if someone was leaving, except it's from the standpoint of you want them to stay. And so ask them, perhaps you say, how are you doing? Really? Like you ask them that to start. How was your busy season? How are you feeling? And you listen to those answers, and then you say, what's the work that you're really enjoying that you'd like to do more of in this next year? What's the work that you aren't enjoying quite as much that you'd like to do less of? And then how can I help you? So those could be your 4 questions in your stay interview. Sometimes firms have it, more complex. They have more questions they want to ask. You can do that, but we think it can be pretty simple and really a getting to know you exercise and a checking in. Is there anything that we need to shift and adjust and change before we get into the spring busy season? We think that's pretty important, and probably not a huge investment of time. You do, depending on how many people you're responsible for, you have to decide who's going to hold those interviews. Is that going to be your HR person? Or are you going to have the individual career managers do that, or the point people? Whatever you call that, your mentors. But making those assignments and then holding those meetings. And then coming back to it together with the data as a group to talk about there's some things that we need to do to address this from a group perspective. And then also individually, are there any changes we need to make? For instance, if someone says to you, I don't think I can be on this job anymore, like this job's really getting me down, then I think we should talk as a team about what can we do to get that person off that job for the next busy season. And we can't honor all the requests that our people have, because sometimes we just have to get the work done, and there's certain things we have to do that are hard and we don't like to do them. But I bet there's some requests in there that you could make, and you could make some shifts and changes and move people around so that they would feel like they were going to have a better busy season coming up. So it's about giving people hope. I think whatever you learn, you want to do what you can to send back some hope into that equation if they're feeling frustrated. So I would do stay interviews, Tamara, for sure. I would take that on.
Well, and so two things. I like the idea of hope. And part of hope goes back to what you said about trust, is that I'm following up on what they tell me and I'm being generous and trying some things, not being stuck in my way. So that's one of the ways that you can build hope, breathe hope back into people. And I think also, generosity, we think about, you're tied to stay interviews, often we think about generosity, we think about money. And there is a place to be generous with, money, especially, many firms we've done well this year and in 2020 and just the new services that we've been able to offer. We've seen many firms do stay bonuses. And so, how do we, reward people for sticking with us through these last 8 months? What are we doing to, maybe reinstate or go back and reevaluate pay raises if we didn't do that in 2020 because we were worried, we didn't know, it was uncertain. So there's ways, of addressing that. And I think it's a good thing to go and do that. But then also, there could be spot bonuses, or we know that there's been ways that, some firms are doing, other tangible, monetary, bonuses or programs that they've been putting together, days off. We know that a firm that was very focused on making sure people actually took a full week of time off because we didn't really have vacations in 2020. And so you take a week off, you get an extra day. And so I'm going to reward you for taking time off because we are really committed for you to take time off. And so there's ways that you can do that, that I think really demonstrates, generosity, but also that reenergizing and recharging, Renee, that you were talking about. So that's another place that you can, look at what is that? How could we do that?
Yeah, and then maybe you were talking about some big monetary rewards, and then there's also small things like, right now, if I were still a firm administrator, I would be showing up with treats each day. I would be thinking about, probably thank you cards from the partners and some sort of little gift inside that thank you card, little small things, and daily. Some firms started at the beginning of COVID, Tamara, these daily gratitude or weekly gratitude emails. I would ramp that stuff up, whatever kind of little things you can do to check in with your people, to see how they're doing, to give them a little keep going kind of message or something nice. I just think that means so much to people, and it's really so easy. It doesn't cost very much money. It doesn't take a ton of time. And so, and then, some firms have WOW programs, things like that. I would be reminding people like, are you giving out your WOWs? Be sure you're doing it. Because right now it seems like it matters more than ever that we are having those touch bases and making those investments in people.
Well, and I think it's important that, we recognize people, that goes a long ways. And whether it's a thank you note or whether it's a gift card or whether it's, hey, take Friday off or, hey, we've got some, programs that we're putting together and we want to offer them to you. And we're going to talk about mental health or, we're part of the BDO Alliance and they did their week of gratitude last week. And we had fun making charcuterie boards. And I did the magic show on Friday, which was fun. He was a riot. It was just fun to hang out and it was nourishing around the food because we had dinner already. So I loved that, but it was just nice to hang out and be recognized and be with some great colleagues. And it was, an hour, here or there or whatever that we can do that. And, just finding the time to do it. And at the same time, I'm going, I don't have time for this. Like that's what's going through my head. I don't have time for this. I don't have time, for our fall, group team meeting and, we're going to make pretzels and they were delicious. And I have to overcome that. I'm like, no, you do have time for this. This is the most important thing you can do because it'll re-energize you, me, and it really does re-energize us as a team. We get connected instead of just transactional. We're trying to, get the work done and serve the clients. And so that time with your team is so important. And so sometimes you can be like, we're so meetinged out or we're zoomed out, but if we can have that time to get connected again, reconnected, I think is so important. And we don't want to overlook it. And I have those thoughts, so I can completely, empathize with when, it's another hour or 2 hours, but oh my gosh, I feel so much better afterwards, and so happy that, we did that. So I think that's important, to find those, kinds of events.
Completely, Tamera. Yes, it definitely is. And the charcuterie board, that was really fun. And there are so many people that are offering these services. Last year we did an Italian cooking class through the BDO Alliance. That was very fun too. So there's just all kinds of fun things out there. I hear people saying, well, fun, our people are bored. They don't want to be on Zoom anymore. Well, maybe you just aren't bringing the right kind of events. So do a survey of your people, say, which of these 5 ideas would you like? And maybe breaking into smaller groups too. So that, if some people want to go do a cooking class, they do that together. Another group wants to do something else. So, just having creativity and trying out some ideas. I would encourage anyone who says my team doesn't want to do it anymore. I think you need to look again. You're fooling yourself if you think that they don't want to get together. We just haven't found the right thing to get them together.
Yes.
And so keep looking.
Well, and I think a big part of it, like I said, is that mindset too. So just some ideas, and come from gratitude and generosity, and see what opens up for you, and start having those conversations, maybe with some of your team leaders, your service line leaders, your managers. If you have a fun committee, bring this idea of, if we were to come from generosity and gratitude, what might we do for each other? Or what could we do if we look at the, remaining quarter here as we look into January? What could we do newly? And so a thank you goes a long ways, but also just some of these other ideas that we've been talking about. So it's huge, and we're grateful for you. We're grateful for all that you're doing, leading your firms and organizations. And so we would love to hear any ideas that you might have to share with us. We're going to share a couple articles. And then if you have anything else that, we could do for you, you can email us at info@convergencecoaching.com. And we would love to do that. So thanks for being with me today, Renee. This was great topic. And we will look forward to seeing you next Monday. So have a great week. I hope it's productive.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Tamera.
Thanks. Take care.